Listen carefully, this isn't about revenge. It's about power, real power. The kind that doesn't scream, doesn't chase, and definitely doesn't beg. If someone played you, the worst thing you can do is stay the same. The best thing? Become unforgettable. The hardest shift to make after someone plays you is resisting the urge to chase them for answers, attention, or validation. That instinct comes from a place of confusion and wounded pride. You want to understand what happened, fix it, or prove your worth. But chasing never brings clarity or respect. It only reinforces the idea that you're willing to accept less than you deserve. The moment you pull your energy back, everything changes. You stop feeding their ego, you stop rewarding their inconsistency, and you start reclaiming your power. When you chase, you're telling them, without words, that their behavior is acceptable. You're showing them that no matter how they treat you, you'll still be there. That's not strength, that's emotional availability being misused. But when you step back and redirect your attention elsewhere, into your growth, your goals, your peace, you begin to replace what you lost with something far more valuable, self-respect. And self-respect is magnetic. It's something they didn't expect from you, and that's exactly why it disrupts the dynamic. Replacing doesn't mean jumping into another relationship to fill a void. It means replacing the habit of prioritizing them with prioritizing yourself. It means filling your time with things that elevate you rather than drain you. You invest in your mindset, your health, your future, and your environment. You start building a life that doesn't revolve around their presence or absence. That shift is powerful because it sends a clear message. You are no longer an option waiting to be chosen. What makes this even more impactful is that your silence speaks for you. You don't need to explain why you left or why you stopped trying. The absence of your attention becomes the message. It creates space for them to reflect, to question, and to feel the loss of what they took for granted. And while they're trying to figure out what changed, you've already moved forward. That's the real power, proving your worth to them, but proving it to yourself through your actions. Most people say they want to level up after being hurt, but very few actually commit to the discipline it requires. It's easy to talk about growth. It's harder to wake up every day and choose it. When someone plays you, the pain can either become your excuse or your fuel. If you keep telling yourself stories about why you can't improve, no time, no energy, no motivation, you stay stuck in the same version of yourself that tolerated the situation in the first place. That's exactly what keeps you in cycles of disappointment. Upgrading your life starts with brutal honesty. You have to look at yourself and ask, where did I ignore red flags? Where did I settle? Where did I shrink just to keep someone? That awareness isn't meant to shame you. It's meant to sharpen you. Because once you see clearly, you can start rebuilding intentionally. You stop pouring energy into someone who didn't value it, and you redirect that energy into becoming stronger, smarter, and more self-sufficient. This is where real transformation begins. You build habits that support your growth, not your comfort. You take care of your physical health, not for validation, but because discipline builds confidence. You invest time in learning new skills, improving your mindset, and expanding your opportunities. You start focusing on things that add long-term value to your life instead of temporary emotional highs. That shift in focus changes how you carry yourself, how you think, and how others perceive you. The key is consistency, not motivation, not temporary bursts of energy, consistency. Even on days when you don't feel like improving, you still show up. Because every small action compounds into a version of you that no longer accepts disrespect, and that's the real upgrade. It's not just about looking better or appearing stronger. It's about becoming someone who naturally attracts better because they no longer tolerate less. One of the biggest mistakes people make after being hurt is leaving the door slightly open, thinking they can still maintain some form of connection without getting affected. In reality, any emotional access you give someone who disrespected you becomes a pathway for them to return without changing. They don't need to grow, they don't need to apologize properly, and they definitely don't need to earn you back because you're already available. That's why cutting emotional access is not harsh. It's necessary. Every reply, every late night conversation, every moment you entertain them keeps you emotionally tied to a situation that already proved it wasn't right for you. It creates false hope, delays your healing, and keeps you stuck in a loop where you're waiting for them to become someone they've already shown they're not. The truth is, people value what they have to work for and respect what they can lose. If they can still reach you easily, there's no urgency, no consequence, no reason for them to reflect on their actions. Cutting emotional access means more than just ignoring messages. It means removing the emotional availability they once relied on. You're no longer their comfort when they feel lonely, no longer their validation when they feel unsure, and no longer their option when things don't work out elsewhere. That space you create forces a shift. It forces them to face your absence without the safety net of your presence. And that's where realization begins. At the same time, this boundary protects you. It allows your mind to clear, your emotions to settle, and your perspective to strengthen. You stop reacting based on feelings and start responding based on self-respect. You begin to see the situation for what it truly was, not what you hoped it could be. And that clarity is powerful because it breaks the emotional attachment that kept pulling you back. Once that attachment weakens, so does their influence over you. Most people lose their power the moment they start explaining themselves, oversharing their emotions, or trying to prove they're okay. That urge to show your side, to make them understand your pain, or to display your healing comes from a need for validation. But the truth is, the more you reveal, the less mystery you hold. And mystery is what keeps people thinking about you long after you're gone. When everything about you is visible, there's nothing left to wonder about. Controlling the narrative isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about choosing what deserves to be seen and what should remain private. Not every emotion needs an audience, and not every step of your growth needs to be documented. When you stop broadcasting your struggles or your progress, you create a sense of distance that makes people question what's really going on in your life. That uncertainty is powerful because it removes their ability to predict you. When someone can't read you anymore, they start filling in the gaps with their own assumptions. They wonder if you've moved on, if you've found someone better, or if you've completely outgrown them. And the more silent you are, the louder those thoughts become. It's not about playing games. It's about protecting your energy and refusing to give someone access to your inner world after they've shown they didn't value it. Staying mysterious also forces you to focus inward instead of outward. Instead of performing your healing for others, you actually live it. You spend less time seeking reactions and more time building a life that speaks for itself. Your confidence becomes quieter but stronger because it's no longer dependent on anyone noticing it. And when people do notice, it hits differently because it wasn't announced, it was earned. There's a certain power in being unpredictable, in moving in ways that don't require approval or attention. You don't explain your absence, you don't justify your growth, and you don't compete for visibility. You simply evolve. And in that evolution, you become someone they can no longer figure out, no longer reach, and no longer replace easily. Outgrowing someone is far more powerful than trying to prove them wrong. When you focus on proving a point, you're still emotionally tied to their opinion of you. You're still operating from a place where their validation matters. But when you shift your focus to becoming a higher standard, everything changes. You're no longer reacting to what they did. You're redefining what you accept moving forward. And that shift creates a version of you that they simply can't access anymore. Raising your standards starts with recognizing what you once tolerated. You begin to see how you accepted inconsistent behavior, unclear intentions, or a lack of effort. Not because you deserved it, but because you didn't fully enforce your boundaries. That awareness becomes your foundation. You decide that moving forward, respect is not negotiable, effort is not optional, and clarity is not something you have to beg for. You set a new baseline for how you expect to be treated, and more importantly, what you're willing to walk away from. Becoming a higher standard isn't about demanding more from others. It's about requiring more from yourself. You develop emotional control so you don't react impulsively. You strengthen your mindset so you don't fall for the same patterns. You build a life that fulfills you so you're not dependent on someone else to feel complete. That independence changes your energy. You no longer chase, you no longer settle, and you no longer compromise your self-worth just to keep someone around. As you evolve, your presence alone starts to communicate your value. You don't have to announce your standards. People feel them in how you carry yourself, in what you accept, and in what you reject. And the person who once played you will recognize that difference immediately. They'll see that the version of you they had access to no longer exists. The tolerance they relied on is gone, replaced by boundaries they can't cross. That's when the realization hits. Not because you told them, not because you argued, but because they can see it clearly. You've become someone who no longer fits into the role they once placed you in. And the hardest truth for them to accept is that even if they wanted another chance, they no longer meet the standard required to have you in their life. Moving on sounds simple, but in reality, it's the most difficult step because it requires you to let go of the emotional attachment, not just the person. You can block someone, stop talking to them, and still carry them in your mind every single day. Real movement happens when you detach internally, when their actions, their choices, and their absence no longer control your mood or your thoughts. That level of detachment isn't instant. It's built through consistent decisions to choose yourself over what you once felt. Holding on, even a little, keeps you connected to the past. You replay memories, imagine different outcomes, or wait for something to change. That waiting keeps your energy stuck in a place that no longer serves you. Moving on requires accepting what happened without trying to rewrite it. It means understanding that closure doesn't always come from a conversation. It comes from your willingness to stop seeking answers from someone who already gave you their truth through their behavior. What makes this step powerful is that it shifts your focus completely. Instead of thinking about what they're doing, who they're with, or whether they regret it, you start focusing on your own life again. Your goals, your peace, your future. You begin to rebuild your identity outside of the connection you once had. And as that identity strengthens, the emotional weight they held over you starts to fade naturally. Indifference is often misunderstood as coldness, but it's actually freedom. It's the point where you no longer feel the need to react, explain, or prove anything. Their name doesn't trigger you, their presence doesn't shake you, and their absence doesn't affect you. You've reached a place where your peace is no longer negotiable and nothing from the past is worth disturbing it. When you truly move on, you don't look back to see if they noticed. You don't care if they regret it or not. That chapter becomes something you learned from, not something you're still emotionally invested in. And ironically, that's when the impact is strongest, because you're no longer trying to make them feel anything. You've already chosen yourself completely and without hesitation.